Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Underworld Blood Wars. It's a movie starring Kate Beckinsale, Theo James, uh, Charles Dance, the Tyrion Lannister's dad from Game of Thrones, as well as Daisy Head, who is the red wizard from Dungeons and Dragons movie, and a couple of other people. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start off with the furry, it's an Underworld movie, so you have vampires and Lycans, and yeah, in this one, I would say the design is probably the best. So, the first movie was pretty much all animatronics. The mouth, in my opinion, didn't open quite as far as it needed to. The second one, the CGI just wasn't quite there yet. And then the third one, again, they leaned way too heavily on the CGI, but they had the werewolfy werewolves. And then you also had the fourth one where they had the underworld Lycans or the sewer Lycans, sub Lycans, whatever they're called, and those things were just bad CGI in my opinion. But the Uber the Uber Lycan was very well done in that one. So in this one, I think that they finally nailed how Lycans should look when Lycanized with CGI. So I think that a majority of the Lycan action in this one is either entirely or mostly CGI, but they did honor to the first Underworld style Lycans while still, I think, improving the design enough to really make, like the jaw make a little bit more sense while keeping them more realistic looking. So, good job there. Moving on to other good and bad things. So, Theo James is always win. Kate Beckinsale is always win. She's always a badass. And the main rival chick in this one, who is like the on the council, like she's badass and damn, she is hot as hell. I love her outfits so much. They do kind of switch back and forth a couple times where I'm like, was that just an editing thing? Or did she change outfits and then change back into the other outfit? Like, But regardless, love all those outfits. And yeah, she is just awesome in general. I think that she makes a good rival, baddie, whatever you want to call her. And also the assistant person, the one from Dungeons and Dragons, I thought she does an excellent job. And also, I love the intensity of her looks with her eyes and everything else. Like, I don't know if it's just her facial features or the makeup or her or combination thereof. Probably combination thereof. But she does a really good job there. And then the main werewolf baddie guy, he has decent amount of presence. He kind of looks vaguely like Scott Speedman, but don't. It's not Scott Speedman. It's not supposed to be Scott Speedman. It's not. So I also think that it would have been better to have the fourth one be called Underworld Blood Wars. That's because I feel like that was more about the blood than this one was. Even though there was like a war in this one could have just been called The War or something. I don't know, but a little bit odd. But the thing is honestly, having finished my rewatch of all of them, I can see why I just really like the first one the most, because the first one is the best. The second one continues that story and ends on a hopeful-ish note, so you can just stop there. The third one has somebody who isn't Kate Beckinsale, but is good enough, and so you can see the origin story. It fucks up the timeline, in my opinion, a bit, but you can just stop there. Because number 4, it's all about the humans and killing the humans and all that other bullshit. And then this one, so number 5, it doesn't do episode 9 level of like, let's ignore everything that episode 8 did type of thing from Star Wars. Like, it doesn't do quite that like back and then forth type of storytelling. But in the fourth one, it really seemed like all of the vampires were like hiding in sewers and almost eradicated, and there's only a few of them left, and the humans were the thing. And then this one, like, we don't address the humans at all. Like, the humans are not a factor whatsoever. So it really feels like we're getting back to the original Underworld of like, humans, they're around, but they're not central to our storyline. But because of how central they were to 4, it's a little bit odd that, and especially because they do establish, like, I think only a year or less difference, maybe 2 or less, maybe even less time, just months, between the end of the fourth one and this one. I don't feel like it was more than a couple years. And yet now all of a sudden the humans aren't the factor, and it's all just the Lycans versus werewolf thing. And don't get me wrong, I do prefer the Lycans versus werewolf aspect of it. But it seems so odd to just completely ignore humans so much without enough of an explanation, in my opinion. The other thing, speaking of things without explanation, the the thing that happens, so spoiler alert, minor spoiler alert, but the kind of you know that the good guys are going to win, right? Like how exactly they win, you don't know, but the good guys are going to win in some way. But how they do it is a bunch of just mumbo jumbo, vague bullshit, magic, and then yep, now we won. But the thing is that I get from the fourth one that you had to come up with something like the Uber Lycan in order to defeat Celine because she was so overpowered at that point. But how they come up with the dude here is a little bit of bullshit. Like maybe they're like, hey, this is what would have happened if we'd had the technology back in the day, but we didn't, so we had the blue guy, so whatever. Like maybe, but then your way to make her then overpowered and win that guy was just even more bullshit. And especially because you're like, okay, well now that you can do that, why don't you do this thing because you can do that? No, you're gonna wait another like 20 minutes and do this like bullshit, like pretend like you actually have a challenge with this. Like I don't know, it wasn't as good, and yeah, it just was not as good of writing, and the ending of it makes you think there's going to be a sequel. It is still a bit of an ending, but it definitely is like, ooh, might have a sequel, might have a sequel. This movie, I believe, came out in 2017. They're not getting a sequel, clearly. So, yeah. And, to be honest, I don't think they needed one. And, yeah, the other ones have set up for sequels before, so I can't really fault that for this movie for setting up a possible sequel. But I really think that the end of the second one was probably the best ending, and then even the end of the fourth one would have been fine, or just don't even watch the fourth one and skip from the third one or the second one to the fifth one, because then you have guns and it's just vampires versus Lycans again, and you're not wondering about all the humans. So, yeah, I think that now that I've finished my rewatch, I would watch number 1 and number 2 any day of the week. Number 1 repeatedly, and then number 3 I'd watch every once in a while, and then I don't really need to rewatch 4 or 5, because yeah, like the kid ripping apart the head in 4 was badass, and a couple of the fighty things were badass, but yeah, it's not as good. Not as good. And then this one, Theo James, always a win, and Tyrion Lannister's dad, always very good, but they cannot hold the rest of this movie together. Even the hot chick with the hot outfits and everything else, like the writing, and also, yeah, the CGI was better. I think the CGI was better, but the lighting was overall worse. Like in Underworld 1, you could see everything that was happening even when it was nighttime, but it didn't have that like overexposed and then underdone, like filmed in the middle of the day, darkening things that they've done with some movies in the past. But with this one, the dark, the blacks just like so crushed in on everything. So yeah, they had lights, but they didn't give off much light for far enough away to light things up. So just how quickly everything just drops to black, I think, I know that they would probably be like, oh, but look, we're cooler at lighting now, and let's have a more gothic thing for the vampire. Like, they did that fine in 1 with better lighting to be able to see the things. So, yeah, in general, I found this movie disappointing, but Kate Beckinsale's still badass, Theo James still is badass, they do badass things, hot vampires and werewolves do their things, so in terms of overall movie, it's okay. It's good, but in terms of an Underworld movie, it was kind of a disappointing end to the series. So, that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming, thanks for watching, hope to see you at the next one. Bye!